The stars stretched endlessly over the royal palace of Altheria, glittering like tiny fires in the dark void of space. From the landing platform, Commander Kale looked up, feeling the weight of the mission ahead. The galaxy was not a kind place, and Altheria, though beautiful and proud, had become a target. Its borders were under attack, and the royal family's life was in danger. Kale's ship touched down with a soft hum, the metal plates glinting under the starlight. He stepped out, his boots clanging against the landing deck. Every step felt heavier than the last. He was not just a soldier. He was the shield between the princess and the destruction waiting outside these walls. His armor, polished and sharp, reflected the distant stars, but it could not reflect the storm he felt inside. Princess Lyra stood at the palace gates, waiting. Her silvery hair flowed in the wind, her eyes bright but shadowed with worry. She looked at Kale with a mixture of hope and fear. "Commander Kale," she said softly, her voice almost trembling, "they are coming. We don't know if we can hold them back." Kyle bowed deeply, his face calm, though his heart raced. "Princess, I promise you," he said, his voice firm and steady. "I will protect you. Nothing will harm you while I stand. Not the stars, not the void, not even death itself." Lyra's lips quivered. She had heard these promises before, but this time, looking at Kale, she felt it might be different. There was a strength in him that went beyond armor or weapons. There was a courage that burned brighter than the stars above. She wanted to believe that promise. She had to. Kyle's eyes swept across the horizon. The night was silent now. Too silent, and that silence carried a warning. Something dark, alien, and relentless was approaching. The shadows at the edge of the sky twisted unnaturally, like the space itself feared what was coming. Kale felt a chill, but he did not show it. Fear had no place in his role, not when a princess's life depended on him. He moved toward the gates, his steps precise, his hand resting on the hilt of his plasma blade. Lyra followed, her small hands clutching the edges of her cloak. "Commander," she whispered, "do you really think we can survive this?" Kale stopped and looked down at her. His eyes softened for the briefest moment. "Survival is not enough, Princess," he said gently. "We will fight. We will endure, and we will protect what matters most. No one will take you from this palace while I breathe." The palace guards were preparing the defenses, but Kale knew numbers alone could not save them. The aliens that approached were unlike anything they had faced. They were fast, merciless, and cunning. They would not stop until they had claimed the life they desired. Kale's jaw tightened. He was ready for them. Lyra felt a sudden fear twist inside her chest. She wanted to run, to hide, but Kale's presence made her feel safer than she had ever felt. There was something about him, something human, something unbreakable, that made her heart beat faster. He was not just a soldier. He was a protector, a shield that would not falter. Then in the distance, the first lights of the alien fleet blinked against the darkness. Their engines hummed, low and threatening like the growl of a beast circling its prey. Kale's eyes narrowed. "They are here," he said, "and we will show them that Altheria is not so easy to break." Lyra swallowed hard, her hands shaking. She had never seen anyone face fear like Kale did. Even now, standing before the storm, he was calm, focused, ready to give everything. And in that moment, she realized that this man would not just fight for her life. He would give his life without hesitation. The stars above seemed to hold their breath. The kingdom of Altheria was on the edge of disaster, and one human heart, brave and steadfast, would stand against the darkness that threatened to consume them all. Kale raised his head, looking at the palace towers bathed in starlight, and whispered under his breath, "I will not fail you, Princess, not now, not ever." Night fell over Altheria like a dark curtain, swallowing the palace towers in deep shadows. The first whispers of alien engines echoed through the skies, low and terrifying, like distant thunder warning of an approaching storm. Kale stood on the palace battlements, his eyes scanning the horizon, every muscle in his body tense. He could see the lights of the alien warships flickering in the distance, and he knew that the coming hours would demand everything from him. Princess Lyra stood behind him, her small hands clutching the railing. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat a mix of fear and hope. She watched Kale and felt a strange warmth in her chest. He was calm, composed, and yet ready to act at a moment's notice. She wanted to believe that with him there, nothing could harm her. The first attack came without warning. Alien ships descended like black comets, firing blasts that lit the night sky with explosions of fire and metal. The palace gates shook under the impact and alarms blared, echoing across the corridors. Kyle did not hesitate. He grabbed Lyra's hand firmly, guiding her toward the inner vaults, where the royal family's most important secrets, and their safety, were kept. "Stay close to me," Kel commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos. Lyra nodded, tears streaming down her face, but she followed without question. Behind them, the palace guards rallied, trying to push back the alien invaders, but their numbers were no match for the creature's relentless assault. Kyle's plasma blade hummed to life in his hands. Its light cut through the darkness like a beacon, illuminating the fear and courage alike. He moved forward, confronting the first wave of alien soldiers. His strikes were precise, each one a mix of strength and speed, his movements fluid and unhesitating. Every enemy he struck down was another moment of life gained for the princess. Lyra watched in awe and fear as Kale fought. His body was a whirlwind of action, dodging attacks, countering with incredible skill and never faltering. She realized then that this man was not just brave, he was extraordinary. Every step he took seemed to carry the weight of the kingdom itself, and every strike of his blade was fueled by something deeper than training or duty. It was pure, unwavering determination to protect her. Suddenly, a massive alien creature burst through the palace gates, its claws tearing through stone and metal as though they were paper. Kale reacted instantly. He stepped in front of Lyra, raising his blade as the creature lunged toward her. Sparks flew as the blade met the alien's claws, and Kale grunted under the force. His armor cracked, metal groaning under the impact, but he did not retreat. "Princess, go now," he shouted, his voice commanding and urgent. Lyra hesitated, frozen by fear, but Kale's gaze locked onto hers. In that moment, she saw something unshakable, an unspoken promise. He would not let her die, not for anything. The first wave of aliens was pushed back, but the battle had only begun. Kyle fought with every ounce of strength in his body, pushing past pain and exhaustion. He was bleeding, battered, yet he refused to stop. Each moment was a struggle, each breath a battle, but his focus never wavered. The princess's safety came first, and nothing else mattered. Lyra ran through the chaos, tears blurring her vision, but her heart was filled with a mixture of fear and hope. She knew Kale was fighting for her, and that knowledge gave her the courage to keep moving. Behind her, the sounds of battle, screams, explosions, and the hum of alien engines echoed through the night. Kale's silhouette, shining in the glow of his plasma blade, was the last thing the aliens saw before being struck down, and in that moment Lyra understood something profound. Kale's bravery was not just for victory. It was a shield, a living barrier between her and the darkness. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, Kale would not give up. He was human, but he fought like something greater, something the galaxy would remember. And the night had only just begun. The palace corridors were filled with smoke, the air heavy with heat and fear. Alien claws had torn through doors and walls, leaving destruction in their wake. Kale moved through the chaos like a storm, every step deliberate, every strike calculated. His plasma blade glowed brightly, cutting through the darkness, cutting through the enemy. Princess Lyra followed as closely as she could, her small hands gripping the edges of her cloak. She could hear Kale's steady breathing, his calm focus amidst the chaos. But then a sound froze her blood, a shriek of alien fury, sharp and terrifying. Kale spun around and saw it. The alien leader. Towering, cruel, and terrifying, it lunged for the princess, claws outstretched, teeth bared. Kale didn't hesitate. In an instant, he threw himself between Lyra and the creature. The impact sent him crashing to the floor. Pain shot through his body, hot and sharp. Armor cracked under the force, sparks flying into the air. "Go! Run!" Kale shouted, his voice hoarse but commanding. Lyra hesitated, frozen in fear. She wanted to help, she wanted to fight, but she knew Kale's words were absolute. She turned, running with all her strength, tears blinding her vision. Every step she took was filled with guilt and hope, knowing Kale was risking everything for her. Kale struggled to rise, his body battered, blood soaking through his armor. The alien leader advanced. Again, eyes glowing with hunger, Kale gritted his teeth, refusing to show pain. He knew that if he faltered, Lyra would be lost. Every strike of his blade now carried the weight of life and death, not just his own, but hers. He fought with everything he had left. The alien was strong, relentless, but Kale's determination burned brighter. Each strike of his plasma blade sent sparks into the air, illuminating the fury and courage in his eyes. He dodged, countered, and pressed forward, even as his strength began to fail. His body ached, every movement a battle against exhaustion and pain, yet he could not stop. Not now, not ever. Lyra reached the safety of a hidden vault deep within the palace. She pressed her back against the wall, listening, praying. Her heart ached, wishing she could do more, but she knew Cale had made the choice for her. He had taken the risk, he had taken the pain so she could live. Back in the corridor, Cale faced the alien leader one final time. Sparks flew as their weapons clashed, metal screaming against alien claws. Cale's vision blurred, his body trembling from the strain. And then, in a final act of defiance, he drove his blade straight into the creature's heart. A roar of anger and pain filled the hallway. The alien leader staggered, then fell, its massive body crashing to the floor with a deafening thud. Kyle's knees buckled. His strength had left him. Blood poured from his wounds and his armor was shattered. Yet in his eyes there was peace, a fierce, unyielding satisfaction. He had done what he came to do. The princess was safe. Lyra, hearing the silence that followed, dared to peek from the vault. Her eyes widened in horror and disbelief. Cale was lying on the floor, unmoving. Panic and grief surged through her, threatening to suffocate her. She ran toward him, her hands shaking as she reached his side. "Cale, please no. Wake up," she cried, tears streaming down her face. She shook him gently, her voice trembling with desperation, but Cale's chest barely moved. He had given everything. His life, his strength, his very being. Everything he had for her. The corridor was quiet now, save for the distant sounds of retreating alien forces. Cale had fought alone against impossible odds and had won, but the price had been the greatest sacrifice imaginable. Princess Lyra sank to her knees beside him, cradling his head, her sobs echoing through the empty hall. He had saved her. He had given her life, and now she felt the unbearable weight of losing the only man brave enough to stand between her and death. The galaxy could take many heroes, but Cale's courage had carved itself into her heart forever. The corridors of the palace were silent now, save for the faint crackle of fire from the damaged walls. Smoke drifted lazily through broken windows, curling in the dim starlight. Queen Seraphine arrived at the scene, her long cloak trailing behind her. But even her regal composure could not hide the fear in her eyes. She saw him lying there, Commander Cale, the man who had faced the impossible, who had protected her daughter with a courage unmatched in the history of Altheria. And now he was still. The queen dropped to her knees beside him. Her hands, steady and commanding in every council and battle, shook as she touched his battered face. The armor that had once gleamed with pride was now cracked, scorched, and bloodied. Her fingers traced the lines of his jaw, the scratches on his cheek, and she whispered, voice breaking, "No, no, you cannot leave us, not now. Not like this." Princess Lyra stumbled to her mother's side, her small frame trembling. She sank beside Cale, clutching his hand as if she could somehow anchor his soul to the world. "Mother, he saved me," she sobbed. "He gave his life for me. How can he be gone?" The queen's eyes, sharp and commanding moments ago, now softened with unbearable grief. She pressed her forehead to Cale's chest, feeling the faint rhythm of life or the absence of it underneath her hand. The thought of losing him, of letting his sacrifice be in vain, was unbearable. She had seen brave men fall before, but Kyle was different. His courage had been a shield not only for her daughter, but for the entire kingdom. His life could not end here, not without meaning, not without hope. The palace medics arrived, moving quickly, their hands shaking slightly as they checked his vitals. "Your Majesty, he's—" One of them hesitated, fear evident in his voice, but Queen Seraphine would not hear it. She pressed a finger to her lips and shook her head, her eyes blazing with determination. "He is not done," she said firmly. "I will not let him go. Not while there is breath left in him and not while there is hope to be found." Lyra clung to her mother, her tears soaking Cale's bloodied armor. "Mother, can he really live?" she whispered, hope and fear warring in her voice. The queen's jaw tightened. She looked down at Cale and made a decision that no one could question. "He will live," she said softly, yet with a force that brooked no argument. "We will not bury him today. We will bring him back. He gave everything for us. Now it is our turn to give him a second chance." The queen rose, her cloak swirling around her as she addressed the medics and guards. "Move him to the infirmary immediately. Gather the best healers, the most advanced technology. Do whatever it takes. I refuse to lose him." Her voice, full of authority and unwavering resolve, carried through the hall. Every guard, every servant, every medic felt the weight of her words. Kale's life was now not only a matter of survival, it was a matter of the Queen's unshakable will. Lyra's sobs quieted as she watched her mother's determination. She realized that the same fire that ruled the kingdom now burned for Kale's life. He had fought for her, yes, but he had also earned something else entirely: the respect, the love, and the unyielding protection of the Queen herself. Carried carefully to the infirmary, Kale's body lay surrounded by the best the kingdom could offer. The Queen did not leave his side, her hands never straying far, her eyes refusing to blink. She whispered promises soft and steady that he would live. She whispered of honor, of courage, of the debt owed to a human who had defied death itself. The night stretched long and quiet, but in the Queen's heart, there was no sleep. She refused it. She refused to accept the loss of a man who had given everything for her daughter, for her people, for the kingdom. And in her heart she made a vow: Kyle would not die. Not now. Not ever. For in Altheria, when a hero's courage shone brighter than the stars, even death could not claim them without a fight. The infirmary was silent, filled with the quiet hum of machines and the soft murmur of medics moving carefully around Kale's prone form. Every pulse, every faint heartbeat was a reminder of how fragile life could be, even for a man who had faced the impossible. Queen Seraphine stood at the bedside, her eyes fixed on him, refusing to blink, refusing to leave. She had made a promise: Kale would not die, and in her heart she believed there was still hope. Princess Lyra sat close by, her hand clutching Kale's, her tears soaking into the fabric of his bloodied armor. "He's still breathing," she whispered, almost to herself, almost a prayer. "Just hold on, Kale, please. You can't leave us." Her voice trembled, yet beneath it was a fragile strength. She had seen him fight with courage no one else could match, and now in his silence she found a courage of her own, the courage to hope, even against the impossible. The Queen called for the kingdom's best scientists and healers, minds brilliant and hands steady. They worked tirelessly, examining Kale's body, studying the injuries, analyzing every faint flicker of life. The medics were skilled, but this was no ordinary patient. Kale's body had endured trauma beyond normal limits, and every method to revive him carried immense risk. One scientist, a young man with deep eyes and steady hands, approached the Queen. "Your Majesty, we can try an advanced procedure, but the odds, they are very low." Queen Seraphine's jaw tightened. "I do not care about odds," she said firmly. Her voice carried the authority of a ruler who refused to bow to fate. "He gave his life for my daughter. He will not be taken from us without a fight. Find a way. Make a way, and do not fail." The scientists worked day and night, blending technology with careful medicine. Every heartbeat of Kale's body, a fragile thread between life and death. Queen Seraphine never left. She whispered to him, promises he could not hear but that somehow seemed to carry through the silence. Promises of life, of honor, of recognition for a man who had given everything. Lyra stayed as well, her hand never leaving his. "Kyle, you are a hero," she whispered. "Heroes do not die. You are ours, and we will not let you go." Her tears fell silently, but each drop was filled with hope, courage, and gratitude. She had seen him fight with strength no one could imagine. She had watched him sacrifice everything, and now she would fight for him in return, even if it was just through hope and love. Hours stretched into days. Machines beeped steadily, monitors flickered, and the medic's eyes grew tired, but the Queen's resolve never faltered. She refused to accept death as the final word. Kale's sacrifice had been immense, but that sacrifice deserved life in return. And in the quiet of the infirmary there was a subtle shift, a faint spark, a whisper of possibility that he might yet return. The young scientist's hands shook slightly as he adjusted the final controls of the life support system. It's time," he said softly. "We can try now." The Queen placed her hand over Kale's, her eyes never leaving his pale face. "Kyle," she whispered, her voice steady and full of promise. "Hold on. You are not done yet. You cannot leave us. Not while there is hope." Lyra pressed closer, her tears wetting his hair. "We are here. We are not letting go. Please, fight for us. Fight for yourself." And in that moment, though Kale could not hear them, though his body lay broken and still, something shifted. The faintest flicker of life responded to their faith, their courage, their unwavering belief that he could survive. For in Altheria, when a human heart gave everything for others, hope itself would bend reality. Even death had to pause when faced with such unyielding devotion. Cale's story was not finished. The infirmary was quiet except for the gentle hum of the life support machines. Outside, the first rays of dawn painted the palace walls with soft gold, but inside, time seemed to stretch endlessly. Queen Seraphine had not left Cale's side since the battle. Her hands rested lightly on his chest, feeling the faint pulse that had given her hope. Princess Lyra sat beside her, her fingers entwined with his, her tears flowing freely, yet her eyes held a glimmer of hope she refused to let go of. Hours had passed, or perhaps days. Time had lost meaning in the silent vigil. Then ever so faintly, a flicker of movement ran through Cale's chest. The monitors beeped slowly, hesitantly, as if testing whether life could truly return to the man who had given everything. Queen Seraphine leaned closer, her breath catching in her throat. "Kelta, can you hear me?" she whispered, her voice trembling with hope and fear. Lyra's fingers tightened around his hand. "Cale, please, wake up. You can't leave us. You saved me. You can't be gone." "Not now," she pleaded, her voice raw with emotion. The warmth of her touch, the strength of her faith seemed to reach him even through his unconscious state. Slowly, his eyelids fluttered. A faint groan escaped his lips, almost drowned out by the machines. His hand twitched, then moved more deliberately. Queen Seraphine gasped, her heart leaping. "He's waking," she whispered, a tear rolling down her cheek. She leaned even closer, holding his gaze as he opened his eyes. Kyle's vision was blurred, but he could make out two figures above him. The princess, her face pale and tear-streaked, and the queen, her eyes shining with relief and determination. "Princess," he croaked, his voice hoarse, barely audible, his hand lifted weakly, brushing against Lyra's. "I'm here," Lyra whispered, sobbing softly, her forehead resting against his. "You're alive. You're awake, please. Don't leave me again." Her words were simple, yet they carried the weight of all the fear and love she had held in her heart. The queen pressed her hand over his face, tears running down her cheeks. "You are ours, Cale," she said firmly, her voice steady despite the emotion. "Not now, not ever. You will not leave us. You have given enough. Now it is time to live." Cale tried to speak, but his throat was dry, his body weak. He looked from Lyra to her mother, and though he could barely move, he understood everything in that moment. He had fought for her life, he had risked everything, and now, he had been given a second chance. Lyra smiled through her tears, pressing his hand to her cheek. "You are stronger than I ever imagined," she said softly. "Not just because you fought the enemy, but because you fought for us, for life, for hope, and now we will fight for you." Kyle's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. His strength was gone, but his spirit, the courage that had carried him through impossible battles, remained. He had been given life again, not just by machines or medicine, but by the unwavering will of those who loved him. The queen leaned closer, her eyes glimmering with pride. "Altheria does not forget its heroes," she said. "And neither do we. You are part of this family now, Cale. You will never stand alone again." For the first time since the battle, Cale felt peace. He had faced death and returned, and the gratitude, love, and determination surrounding him filled the void that pain had left. He knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them not alone, but with the princess and the queen by his side. The dawn light grew brighter, streaming through the windows of the infirmary, reflecting in Cale's tired eyes. Hope had returned to the palace of Altheria, and with it a promise. One human heart, brave and unwavering, could rise again, stronger than ever, to face the stars. Cale took a shaky breath, his voice finally clear enough to speak. I will not fail again," he whispered, looking at Lyra and the queen. And in their eyes he saw a reflection of his own determination. Together, they would overcome anything. The palace of Altheria shone under the light of a golden morning. The battle-scarred walls now repaired, the streets filled with the hum of life returning. Citizens looked up at the royal towers, whispers of hope and admiration spreading through the city. Today was no ordinary day. Today, the man who had given everything for their princess, for their kingdom, was standing among them once more. Commander Cale, though still recovering, walked beside Princess Lyra and Queen Seraphine. His armor, now repaired and polished, gleamed faintly under the sunlight. His face, marked by past battles and pain, carried a calm strength that spoke of courage, sacrifice, and resilience. He had faced death itself and returned, and the people knew it. They had witnessed the impossible. Princess Lyra's hand rested gently on Kale's arm as they walked through the palace gardens, where flowers had begun to bloom despite the scars of war. "You are ours," she said softly, her eyes shining with gratitude and love. "You fought for me, for all of us, and now you are here." Kale gave a small humble nod. "I did what anyone would have done," he said quietly, though in his heart he knew the truth. Not everyone could stand against impossible odds and face death without fear. He had done it because he had no choice, because he could not let the princess fall. And in doing so, he had become something greater than a soldier. He had become a symbol of humanity's courage. Queen Seraphine stepped forward, her regal presence commanding attention. The citizens gathered silently, waiting for her words. She raised her hands, her eyes sweeping over the crowd. "People of Altheria," she said, her voice steady and proud. "This man, this human, faced death to protect our princess. He gave his life so that hope could live, and now he stands before us once more." The crowd erupted in cheers, clapping and shouting in admiration. Flowers were thrown, banners waved, and Kale felt something he had never experienced before: pure gratitude and respect from an entire kingdom. But it was not the cheers that mattered most. It was the quiet pride in Lyra's eyes, the unwavering love and determination in the queen's gaze. Kale looked at them both, his heart swelling with emotion. He had sacrificed everything, and yet he had been given life again, not just to survive, but to continue to protect, to continue to inspire. He understood now that his purpose was not only to defend the princess in battle, but to show the galaxy the strength of humanity's heart, its courage and its unyielding spirit. "Kale," Lyra said softly, squeezing his arm, "you are a hero, not because of your strength, not because of your skill, but because you refused to give up on what mattered most. You gave hope to all of us, and that is what makes you extraordinary." Kyle's lips curved into a faint smile. "I did what I had to do," he said, though he could feel the weight of the moment settling in. He had been ordinary once, a soldier among millions, but now he had become a symbol, proof that one human heart, brave and unyielding, could change the fate of a kingdom, and perhaps even the galaxy. The queen placed a hand on Kale's shoulder, her eyes soft but firm. "You are family now, Kale, and family protects each other always. Your sacrifice will never be forgotten. Your courage will be remembered for generations, and we will always stand with you." As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Kale looked around at the palace, the gardens, the people, and the two women who had given him purpose beyond his own life. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of challenges yet to come. But he knew one truth that would never change: courage, loyalty, and sacrifice were not just words, they were what made humanity extraordinary. And in that moment, Commander Kale, the human who had faced death and returned, understood his legacy. He was no longer just a protector of the princess. He was a hero, a symbol, a reminder to all that even against impossible odds, the heart of a human could rise above, shining brighter than any star. The people cheered again, but Kale's eyes stayed on Lyra and the queen. He knew finally that his fight had been worth everything. He had given life, hope, and courage, and now he would live to carry it forward. The kingdom of Altheria had witnessed humanity at its finest. And Kale would never be forgotten.